I have the proud privilege and honor today to introduce our 32nd annual Honorary Chair, Mr. D'Artagnan Bell, Vice President and General Manager of Fox Television Stations Division. Enjoy the presentation. Today, I have the proud opportunity to introduce the Greater Houston Frontiers Club 2020 Honorary Chair, Mr. D'Artagnan Bell. Mr. Bell moved to Houston back in the early 2000s, landing his new career as the new Vice President and General Manager for Fox 26 and My 20 TV stations. The Greater Houston Frontiers organization has had the privilege of working with Mr. Bell in many capacities over the last few years. For the last 2 consecutive years, Mr. Bell has served as our honorary chair for the annual golf tournament, along with also serving as one of the most recent guest speakers for our scholarship gala. Over the last 20 years, since Mr. Bell's arrival to Houston, he has devoted his journey towards education and serving his local community. When we speak about giving back, we think about individuals such as Mr. Bell, who has helped to contribute towards the current and future success of this organization. Mr. Bell has the opportunity of providing leadership to the most diverse TV station in the Houston area, on and off of the air. As one of the few minority GMs in the country, he prides himself on his passion for helping others and providing a platform for the voice of the local community. Because of the tireless involvement and partnership of individuals like Mr. Bell, the Greater Houston Frontiers Club has been able to provide over $2 million in scholarships to students in the local community. Please let me bring to the stage our 2020 Greater Houston Frontiers Club MLK Honorary Chair, Mr. D'Artagnan Bell.
Morning. I am blessed and highly favored. First of all, I want to give thanks to Donnell Cooper and the Greater Houston Frontiers Club for allowing me the honor of serving in such a way to honor Dr. King's legacy by being the honorary chair for this morning's breakfast. I hesitate to say this because of physically where I am, but I am a proud graduate of the Mecca for HBCUs, Howard University. I hesitated for a moment because of where I am. And I also had the honor and privilege to be finished by an Ivy League graduate school, which I won't mention the name here. But I remember in my second year of the graduate program, I actually ran out of money. And I had to rush to the financial aid office and literally, well, there's nothing we can do except give you another loan. So, the UNCF, I think, coined the phrase that a mind is a terrible thing to waste. Well, what I would suggest to you is not only that, but debt is a terrible thing to have, particularly in the educational process. And, one of the big things that's in the news of late is they're talking about students that are burdened with student debt. Well, I would tell you that I had that experience. However, I was blessed and able to pay off all my student debt in 20 years. So I spent a third of my life paying off student debt. And proud to say that. I'm also blessed to have 4 children from my lovely wife, who's also here, Angela. And as such, 4 additional college educations to somehow figure out a way to pay for. So I thought when I got out, I was done. Well, no. And currently I have 2 that are out, and we have twins, one at A&M and one at TCU, graduating this May, thanks to Mom. And as I said earlier, I'm blessed and highly favored because my wife and I have had the ability to actually pay for the education of all 4 of our children. But also realizing that many of us don't. Not that you are not blessed in your own ways, but not all of us necessarily have the ability to pay for an education. And so one of the reasons why you're all here today is to help raise scholarship money for these well-deserving students and to try and keep them out of some semblance of debt. Because I'll tell you, after paying 20 years worth of student loans back, every little bit helps. Doesn't matter if it's $1,000, $500, the old time savings bond or whatever, every little bit helps. So you are a blessing to these students that you are blessing today, and therefore you will be blessed as well. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't say this also, but I'm also here, particularly since I mentioned the fact that I went to Howard University. But, we have another HBCU here in Houston that I know we're very proud of. I have a relationship with them and have had over the many years that currently happens to be in a leadership crisis. Many would say that HBCUs in this time and day have outlived their usefulness. I say, hell no. And so as we help support our students, no matter where they attend, I would also ask you to support TSU in this crisis of leadership that we're currently going through, and to keep on fighting the fight. So with that, as I begin to close, what I'd also say and ask forgiveness is that my niece is here, who actually lives in New Jersey, Kayla, and she is going to be graduating from TSU Law School in May. So any of y'all that need a stunning attorney, she's available in May. We'd like to keep her here in the Houston area and not send her back to Jersey. So with that said, let me close by saying I want to thank all of the sponsors, all of the individual ticket purchasers, people that bought tables, individual tickets, made donations, because it's you that we're honoring today in the name of Dr. King's legacy. Thank you very much.
Mr. Dortena Bebel, on behalf of the Greater Houston Frontiers Club, we want to recognize and thank you for your attributes as you've been a proud supporter of the Greater Houston Frontiers Club. And this is a small token of our appreciation to say thank you and congratulations.
First of all, Mr. Butler, thank you so much for the honor of this award. It is one, when you're honored by the community you serve, that's a special place in my heart, and I do appreciate that and everyone that has come out to the breakfast this morning. I was born in St. Louis, but I moved here in 1960 with my father. My father was the first African-American to be entered into St. Louis University Medical School and to graduate from there, and he came down here into practice. When he came down in 1960, you could not work except for two hospitals, Houston Negro Hospital and St. Elizabeth's Hospital. So he and his other colleagues had to sue to get on staff at St. Joseph's Hospital. I say that to say that I was born in a community of activism. In one single private practice, we are the largest treaters in the United States. We write more HIV prescriptions from our office than anywhere also in the United States. So I'm proud of our ability to continue to care for patients and to allow them to lead relatively normal lives at this point in time. So I think the most memorable thing is what our community, this small little practice, was able to do for the entire world. When we went to the International AIDS Conference, Harvard, Yale, Stanford, Johns Hopkins came to ask us what we were doing because they weren't having any success. We were invited to South Africa right after apartheid to talk when African Americans were not able to even go there to speak. And I was able to speak in South Africa about our life-changing treatments that allowed the disease to be controlled. And so the most important thing is to say how important this community has been to change the trajectory of HIV treatments nationally and internationally. I'm most proud of what our community was able to do. The good news is we're doing well with our treatments and people are able to live with the disease process, just like diabetes and hypertension. The bad news is we're continuing to see new cases in the United States. And in point of fact, 48 counties in the United States represent over 50% of the new HIV patients that we see on a yearly basis. And one of those counties is Harris County. We're continuing to unfortunately see new cases over and above what we should be seeing in the United States. And in point of fact, we are worse than some African countries as far as new cases are concerned at this point in time. And so what I need from the community is I'm going to call you when we have to end up going out and saying what we demand for our healthcare industries. I want to have the support of the people in this audience that says that we're going to do what's right for patient care in Houston, Texas, to make sure that we take care of not just HIV, but people that have all illnesses in our community like we need to. And I appreciate the honor here and your attention.
Ladies and gentlemen, only in America, Dr. Joseph Clayton Gath, Jr., 3rd Ward.
Thank you. Thank you all very much for the honor of this award. There's no greater award that you can get that comes from the community that raised you and that you try to serve. And to get that kind of award when it's not expected is very meaningful for me. I think my little 2-minute video here says what I wanted to say. I want to emphasize 3 points. The first is that a drum major is no better than the band that plays behind them. And with me, I have a celestial band. The leader is God, because there's no way I would be where I am if it wasn't for him. Right up there is my mother, Carol Gath, who, when we came down here to Houston in 1960, the schools were separate but equal. And she did, in community service and activism, allowed us to go to integrated schools to get the education that we got. And the one thing that society cannot take away from you, no matter what they try to do, is the diplomas are on your wall. And so as I continue to fight every day, having those diplomas on the wall and my mom meant a lot. My dad, also in heaven, had to sue so we could get on staff and see patients at the hospitals here, and because of that, it allows us as African-American physicians, but also as African-American patients, to be able to get equal care, at least so far in Houston, Texas, and that also means a lot. Also, as good as Barack Obama is, he would not be anything without Michelle. My Michelle is here, Deanna Brogath, who stands by me through the fights that we do. Stand up, Deanna, wherever you are over there. And my 3rd Ward posse, who has been with me for the last 50 years, that keeps it real for me, they're also here to honor me also. I want to make 2 other points. The first is one thing that I said. We always have the bad things we talk about. The good things is that Houston, Texas, 3rd Ward, Texas, was instrumental in fixing the HIV epidemic in the United States as well as worldwide. The studies we did, we had the largest HIV clinic in the United States at Park Plaza Hospital. The research we did saved lives. The life-changing medications that changed this disease from a chronic one, that research was first done through my office at our place in the first International AIDS Conference that had life-saving medications, 1995 in Vancouver, Canada, was done by us, by me. So 3rd Ward, Texas has a worldwide understanding and recognition for what we've done with the epidemic. The final thing I want to say, and it's an important thing at the last part, is that 48 counties represent over 50% of the new cases of HIV in the United States. The vast majority of those cities are in the southern United States. Harris County is one of those. Men that have sex with men that are black, 1 out of 2 will get HIV in their lifetime. Women, 1 out of 50. And so we still have a major epidemic. But you know what? We have the tools in our hand to stop that right now. And what you have to do is essentially get tested and get medications. The issue, though, is that there are certain members of our communities, for example, hospitals, that refuse to give HIV medicines to our patients. If you come into the hospital and ordered HIV medications, they refuse to give it. When we try to fight for that, they says, well, why don't you just get off the staff and take your patients with you? And so while I'm saying that, this drum major is asking this community, this band, to pick up your instruments and fight for the next right thing, which is equal health care in Houston, not just for the HIV patients, but for those physicians that continue to try to care for our community. Because at the end of the day, we can say all the things we want to here, but if you don't have your health, you can't do anything for anyone. And so I will be calling on people in this community to stand with me and to fight with me for the health care that our community deserves and that what my mother and father began for us in the 60s. Thank you for the honor of your attention and the privilege of having a few minutes to speak with you. Thank you so very much.
The Drum Major recipient award was named after our drum major for civil rights, Dr. Martin Luther King. And I think that after you've heard the words of Dr. Gath, what more person would be more befitting of this opportunity? Dr. Gath, on behalf of the Greater Houston Frontiers Club, we want to just give you a small token of our appreciation, along with a proclamation from the Congresswoman for our Drum Major recipient 2020, Dr. Joseph Gath.
Congratulations to our honorees so far. Next up, Second Vice President Charlene Johnson will come to give the introduction of the keynote speaker. Charlene.
Today, we celebrate the legacy of Dr. King and also his message. But while we know so much about Dr. King's fight for civil rights, we cannot forget that his focus was also on economic injustice. This is why it is truly an honor to introduce this year's keynote speaker. Dr. George C. Frazier is considered by many as one of the foremost authorities on economic development, power networking, and building effective relationships. While his accomplishments are significant, his beginnings were very humble. He was born in 1945 in Brooklyn, New York, to a troubled family of 11 children. After serious mental health issues with his mom at 2 years old, he and 6 of his siblings were orphaned, then put into a toxic foster home for a total of 16 years. He was not considered to be college material, so he was sent to a vocational high school to get a diploma in carpentry, and the rest is history. He did graduate from Dartmouth College's Minority Business Executive Program. Dr. Frazier rose to leadership positions with corporate America. It was some 25 years ago that God unveiled his real purpose for Dr. Frazier. He went on to write 6 critically acclaimed books. My favorite book was Success Runs in Our Race. Success Runs in Our Race is the guide to effective networking in the Black community and any community. It was a book that I read when I graduated from college, and it totally changed my life. A popular speaker and author, Dr. Frazier inspiring talks on successful principles and effective networking, wealth creation, business ethics, and valuing diversity are as popular among corporate professionals as they are among college students. Dr. Frazier has always believed it is not how you start, it's how you finish. That God has great plans for each of us. We must simply listen to his voice, follow directions, overcome the obstacles, and stay the course. Dr. Frazier's favorite line from super rapper Drake, started from the bottom, now we're here. Here is his life in 120 seconds.
Thank you. Dear Lord, today alleviate the unnecessary, interrupt the annoying, upset the status quo, assign more angels, usher in more miracles, and overthrow everything that is average. I could have sworn that the theme that I read on the book, as I did a cursory glance, said, challenging the president to live the dream. It didn't say that. That would have been perfect, wouldn't it? I want to do just a quick shout out. I don't know if the mayor's still here. You took my speech. I don't know how you figured that out, but you did. A shout out to my Sigma brothers and my Zeta sisters who are in the house. I know there's some alphas here and there's some omegas here. Oh, there you go. And most importantly, I want to do a shout out to the beautiful Carmen Herrera for connecting me to Lorenzo Butler, chairman of the Frontier Club, who is a servant leader and who has invested his time, talent, and treasure to help move this great city of Houston forward for 2 generations. His father left his business to Mr. Butler. I'm deeply indebted to both of them because it is through the very convincing conversation that I have been having with Carmen for many years and the undying support of Lorenzo Butler that convinced me to move our award-winning Power Networking Conference to Houston, Texas for 3 years. We were here last year. We will be here in July. And that was a hard thing to do. So I want to thank you, Carmen, for that. And Mr. Butler, thank you for your support. May God grant me the words to speak your thoughts. I want to welcome everyone as we celebrate the birth of Dr. Martin Luther King, who for at least 2 generations, if not the 20th century, was the moral center of America. This is my 25th Martin Luther King Day speech somewhere around the country. And I thought deeply about what I wanted to say. I dusted off a few of my remarks. I keep them. And I decided that, no, I'm not going to use anything from my past remarks because this is a special moment in time. In the spirit of Dr. King, I have titled my short remarks on what would Dr. King think and say today. I am concerned and I am hopeful. 52 years after his death, 57 years after his I Have a Dream speech, there are still 3 critical questions that we must deal with as an America. Is there still a color line? Is America still racist? Is capitalism still broken, as Dr. King once said, with a growing divide between the rich and poor and a black and white economic divide that is growing every day? And third, is the moral decay in leadership corrupting our ability to love each other and to work as one and to truly commit ourselves to diversity and inclusion in a dramatically changing America? At this very moment, this week, America will come to a standstill as the Senate conducts a presidential trial based on a set of moral grounds violating the United States Constitution as never before. Honestly, this is the elephant in the room. The timing only God could have arranged. What is God trying to tell us, brothers and sisters? What obstacle does he want us to overcome. And it was Dr. King who said, "The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy." Dr. King was one of the greatest moral leaders of the 21st century. He was assassinated at 39, and he was not even in his prime of life. He would be 91 this month. His father lived to be 85, so theoretically, Dr. King could still be with us today if not assassinated by a racist. I have wondered, if he was alive today, what would he be thinking and saying about the economic disparities that still exist in the current state of political leadership and its moral transgressions? I am concerned, and you should be too. Personally, as I have experienced this, it reminds me of an animal kingdom analogy that I observed in Kruger National Park in South Africa many years ago on one of my 31 trips to the continent. What I observed on the rump of an elephant are birds riding the elephant. They are called oxpeckers. They are there to protect the elephant from insects and lice that can harm him, and they eat the insects. The oxpecker gets a free ride and a free meal, and then he gets reelected, so to speak. But if the oxpecker becomes a nuisance, the elephant with his heavy tail swats him away, and sometimes even killing him. Pun intended. I am concerned at 75 years old and 13 presidents in my lifetime that I have never experienced this level of moral decay, national stress, and angst. The political leadership is further dividing and polarizing the country, according to a Sunday New York Times editorial. The current political leadership is bending the norms of democracy in ways this country might not survive. It is further dividing and polarizing the country by stoking racial and class and geometric animosities. More than half of the country is in a state of stunned disbelief since November of 2016. End of editorial from the New York Times. There are new and terrible norms, brothers and sisters, for behavior every single day, and the oxpeckers that sit on the president's shoulders are right there with him. Some have been swatted away, and some are now in jail. I believe Dr. King, if he were alive today, would be very concerned. Perhaps even outrage with the power of his moral suasion being rendered useless. His historic words reflect his deepest feelings on what I call personally a conundrum wrapped up in enigma. That's what we have today. Dr. King said, "He who passively accepts evil is as much involved in it as he who helps to perpetuate it. He who accepts evil without protesting against it really is cooperating with it." This moral crisis that we are in right now, which is antithetical to everything Dr. King lived and died for, it is the worst since the Civil War of this country, reminds me of an Asian fable as to how we got into this mess in the first place. A fable, if you remember Aesop's fables, usually use inanimate objects to make a moral point. A short Asian fable. The forest was shrinking, but the trees kept voting for the axe. For the axe was clever and convinced the trees that because his handle was wood, He was one of them. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. Dr. King's belief that the moral arc of the universe bends at the elbow of justice, well, let me say that the moral arc at this moment in time would look like a pretzel right now as we enter the Senate presidential trial this week. Thank God for a good economy and religion. Or as Napoleon said, without religion, the poor would be murdering the rich. But nonetheless, I am hopeful. The mountain we must climb, brothers and sisters, is very steep, but I am hopeful. Because the overwhelming majority of Americans, I want to believe, are loving and caring people, but time will tell. God teaches us that if the mountain was smooth, we couldn't climb it. Dr. King said that change does not roll in on wheels of inevitability, but comes through continuous struggle. There are obstacles, brothers and sisters. There have always been obstacles, especially for black people, but we have persevered, and yes, we shall overcome. My favorite quote outside of the Bible, my favorite quote in the Bible is Proverbs 13:22, a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. But outside of the Bible, my favorite quote is by Emperor Marcus Aurelius. Marcus Aurelius was one of the 5 great Caesars. He said this in 160 AD. I'm going to read it twice. The impediment to action advances the action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Let me repeat that. The impediment to action, Doc, advances the action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Whew. Let me say it differently. The obstacle is the way. Where there is no obstacle, my brother, there is no way. What is the first thing God does when He gives you an assignment that He knows that you are ready for? He puts an obstacle in your way. And your job is to find a way over, around, through, and under the obstacle. And when you do, you have learned the lessons. You get an attaboy and an attagirl, and then you get a new assignment at a slightly higher level. And what's the next thing God does? He puts an obstacle in your way. And your job is to find a way over, around, and through, or under the obstacle. Thus, when you look back over your life, especially black people, you will understand that your obstacle really is a divine sequence of obstacles or lessons designed to teach you what you need to know for this passage in your life. That you learn more from failure than you will ever learn from success. James Baldwin said it beautifully. He said, we are born, we suffer, and we die. Woo, James. We are born, we suffer, and we die. And what did he mean by that? He meant that it's how we manage our suffering is what will determine what the dash means in your life between the year you were born and the year you die. How you manage your suffering will determine your heaven or hell on earth. I say to you, brothers and sisters, we must stand up to our obstacles and do something about them. You will find that they do not have half the strength that you think they have. On a personal note, after 3 years in an orphanage, 13 years in toxic foster care, growing up on the mean streets of Bed-Stuy and Brooklyn, New York, I quote Dr. King once again. As my sufferings mounted, I soon realized that there were two ways in which I could respond to my situation, either to react with bitterness or to seek to transform the suffering into a creative force. I decided to follow the latter course. This was the hand that God had dealt me. I don't know what hand that God has dealt you, but that was the hand that God had dealt me. These were the cards that I had to play, and when I played those cards, the best that I could play them, God gave me a new hand. And then I played those cards, and I played them the best that I could. To my brothers and sisters of African descent, as an elder, and I would ask that every brother and sister, given the microphone, given the podium, who is 65 or older, that you introduce yourself as an elder. Our young people are missing that. So as an elder, my admonishment to you is to remind you that we still live in a racist country, powered by white privilege and greedy capitalism, not compassionate capitalism, and someday that will change. It will not change in our lifetime, but we must remember that everything we do for our children, just as everything our parents did, they did for us. If our children cannot see the future, they will not pay the price. Dr. King's dream is not realized at this moment in time. Thus, I'm going to give you some old school advice and guidance that still applies. I don't know what your mama told you, but I'll tell you what my mama told me, that we're going to have to be twice as good to get half as much, because if you're black and mediocre in America, you better leave. Because you're going to be marginalized in this country and you will ultimately be destroyed. Therefore, excellence for us is a priority. Black exceptionalism for us is a must. Excellence in all things that we do. Dr. King provided us that admonishment many years ago. Therefore, you must get highly educated, read, and be committed to constant, never-ending improvement, lifelong learning, and personal growth and development. You will never stop learning. I read 100 books a year. I spend $15,000 a year on conferences, workshops, seminars, and I'm already at the top of the heap. And I'm still learning. I'm 75. Still going, still sitting, still learning. That's number one. Number two, we must become a financially literate people. We must become a financially literate people. We must understand capitalism, economics, and money. In America, two things are going on 24/7. Somebody's buying and somebody's selling. We are the consumption economy. They are the merchant economy. They make stuff, we buy stuff. Stop doing all the damn buying and sell something. If you make cookies, put them in a box and put your name on it and sell it to somebody. If you live on a farm, take the manure, put it in a bag, put your name on it and sell it to somebody. You can be an entrepreneur. Stop doing all the damn buying and sell something. Economics must become the new black power. To be black and beautiful in this world, brothers and sisters, means nothing unless you are black and powerful. We cannot be black and proud and niggers too. White folks are planning for 3 generations and we're planning for Saturday night. If nothing changes according to all of the statistics, by 2053, the household median wealth of black families will be zero. Try to operate in America in a capitalistic society with no money. The goal, brothers and sisters, is to win, not to look like we're winning. I would rather carry a plastic bag with $5,000 in it than to carry a $5,000 Louis Vuitton bag with $100 in it. You ain't winning. Louis Vuitton's winning. Nike is winning. Gucci is winning. Ferragamo is winning. But your ass ain't winning. The future of black people will not be dependent upon how white people treat black people. The future of black people will be dependent upon how black people treat black people. We are all drinking from wells that we did not dig. We are standing on the shoulders of giants. We must give back. Don't ever forget where you came from. You must reach down and lift up, reach back and pull forward. If I wanted to put this into 3 words, we must all learn, earn, and return. We have a lot of us learning, a lot of us earning, but not enough of us returning. Finally, Dr. King spoke prophetically, and I quote, "I believe that the unarmed truth and unconditional love will have the final word in reality. This is why right, temporarily defeated, is stronger than evil triumphant." So I say to you, brothers and sisters, suffer what there is to suffer, enjoy what there is to enjoy, but continue to stay the course. Then all that is due you will come to you, because you're going to live, I promise you, you're going to live a long and fruitful life. How do I know this, Dr. Fraser? Because I have faith, I am hopeful, and I read. That's how I know. What did I read, Doc? Not long ago, the New England Journal of Medicine, the New England Journal of Medicine, the first medical journal in America, the Harvard of medical journals, if you will, did a massive study on the 3 most productive periods of our life. And here's what they found. The number 1 most productive period of your life is between 60 and 70. The number 2 most productive period of your life is between 70 and 80. And the number 3 most productive period of your life is between 50 and 60. The average Nobel Prize winner is 62. The average CEO of a Fortune 500 company is 63. The average age of pastors of the 100 biggest churches in America is 71. The average age of a pope is 76. Mandela became president at 76. Ray Kroc started McDonald's at 59. Toni Morrison won her Pulitzer for Beloved at 57. Then she won a Nobel at 62. Frank Lloyd Wright, I study architecture. I love architecture. The great Frank Lloyd Wright, the iconic architect, built his magnum opus, the Guggenheim Museum on 5th Avenue and 54th Street in New York City. I watched it being built as I grew up as a child. He completed his magnum opus at 91. This tells us that somehow God has designed the best years of our lives between 60 and 80. It is when you do your best work. Dr. King was deprived of that opportunity, but nonetheless, in his God-given giftedness, he changed our world. So I close by saying to you, brothers and sisters, your best years are ahead of you. You ain't seen nothing yet. 0 to 50, you're just learning. You're just practicing. You're still wet behind the ears. Get out here and do your work. Do God's work. Then all that is due you will come to you. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed it. This is why I wanted to introduce him. This is why. I hope you enjoyed it.
I'm going to be very respectful. We didn't get a whooping physically, but mentally. But I'm going to be respectful. And on behalf of the Greater Houston Frontiers Club Elder, right, Dr. George Frazier, we would like to give you a small token of our appreciation as our keynote speaker for this year. Thank you so much for your participation and support. And again, congratulations.
Thank you. Can I say one thing? I'm highly decorated. This is critical, this is important on this day to get this award. Thank you. Finally,